Hello and welcome to Tech Town,
Town.
Season 2, Episode 27 of your favorite two people talking tech. I am Mr. Ellsberg, and this is our Town Wizard.
Town.
That's right. And we're going to be talking all things here, technology. Today we are talking making music.
Making music with technology. I mean, it turns out you can make music with technology.
Right, so you can boop to your beep and bop to your bump and get it done. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to get some rhythm. We're going to get some percussion. We're going to get it all together.
Oh, yeah, and weird fat bass dubstep sounds, too.
Yeah, we're going to get some crazy robot rock.
Yep.
Yeah, robot, recognize robot. And so let's get right into it. How do we make music?
All right,
Technology.
so lots of ways to make music with technology. There's also the way to make real-life music and record it and mess with it. I'm not going to talk about that as much. I'm going to talk more about how do you actually make the sounds with technology.
Nice.
So instead of using a guitar, you're going to use this future keyboard. Maybe it's a MIDI keyboard. MIDI is a word we're going to talk about. Or just your computer keyboard. You can press buttons and make noises. So yeah, let's get into it. So a couple ways you can do it. Number one is the MIDI that I was talking about. So MIDI is a technology that is basically just a signal to say trigger a sound.
Okay.
So you can have that signal come from anywhere. It could be, a keyboard that looks like a keyboard, and you press the button and it makes a sound.
Okay.
You might have had a keyboard back in the day. Just like as a kid, I had a little keyboard and you press it. That's actually different. That's not MIDI. That's just a little keyboard and it has sounds inside the keyboard and you just play the sounds. What MIDI is, it can look like a keyboard, but there's no sounds in the keyboard.
Okay.
All those keys are little triggers. And when you press the trigger, it has to send a signal to the computer. And the computer says, oh, what key was pressed? How hard was it pressed? How long was it pressed? Not even just the keys. Sometimes they have little pads. And at that point, it doesn't matter. It can be anything. It can be a knob that you twist. It can be a button that you push.
Or it could be a piece of fruit.
It could be a piece of fruit if you have a trigger set up. So whatever it is, all it's doing is sending a signal to the computer. And then the computer does the sound making. So when you hear MIDI, what you can know is a couple things. Number one is you need a trigger. So it's either a keyboard or an Apple or whatever you're saying. And then you also need the sounds.
Right.
That's one thing that confused me a lot at first. Is like, well, okay, I got this keyboard, but there's no sounds in it. What's the deal? So then what you do is you have to figure out on the computer how to get all these sounds. So one way you can do that is there's these programs that have the ability to take the MIDI signal and make a bunch of sounds. I'd say the easiest one, if you happen to have either a Mac or an iPad, is GarageBand. Okay. GarageBand is something that comes built in and it's free, and it has a bunch of programmed in sounds. Right. So all you have to do is just plug in, let's say you have a USB MIDI keyboard. But that means you have this little keyboard, it has a USB port, no sounds in it, but you plug it into your computer. And then in GarageBand, you can choose from all the different instruments, and you can say, I want to play the bass. And then you press the keys and a bass sound comes out of your computer. Okay. Or if you want to play the ultra synthy lead, air metal guitar or something, it has that too. So I'd say GarageBand and a MIDI keyboard is kind of the simplest way to start down this path.
It kind of sounds like a font to me.
Okay, in a way, it's a sound font.
Yeah, it's a sound font. Yeah. So each one of the keys, does a different shape of a letter, that might all be kind of in sync with each other. So you might have your bass font. Exactly. Which would be like, maybe your Times New Roman or something like that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then you have
your wingdings, which is like the crazy electronic waves of weird sounds.
Yeah, and then there's Comic Sans, which is like the font that you hear all the time that you don't want to hear.
Yeah, you gotta get a different font. Come on, give me it. Yeah, no, that's a good way to describe it, because it's basically like, you get these sets of instruments, and then you can switch between them. Very cool. Another cool side effect of that is that when you're triggering things, not only can you save the trigger, but not the sound. Right. Let me explain that. So when you're pressing the MIDI keyboard, what it's saving is the time that you press the key, the amount that you press the key, is not actually saving the sound until you want it to, which means you can go back and totally change the sound afterwards. So maybe you played this weird little flute sound, but that wasn't quite right. It needed to be a bass, you can just change it to be a bass, press play, and it already just plays it as a bass.
It sounds like it really breaks down the music into, you know, like a formula.
It is in a way. It won't tell you which notes to play. You know, you still have to like figure out what sounds you want or what order you want to play the notes in.
Right. So it's kind of like if you go to a burger shop and say, I want a burger, and then they give you something like, here's the bun spot, right? Here's the meat spot.
Yeah, right.
Here's the lettuce spot.
Right.
Here's the tomato spot.
Right.
Here's the condiment spot. And then you can pick whatever sound.
Swap it
You're
in.
like, wait, no, I wanted a temp meat burger. I wanted a bacon bun. I mean, you get it.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Cool.
And you get as weird as that too, right? It doesn't have to be normal sounds.
Right.
Last thing about MIDI is that it can also trigger things besides sound, like an instrument. It can trigger effects.
Okay.
So like one example is MIDI can be a button, but it also can be a knob.
Yeah.
And all the knob is doing is just saying what position the knob is at, and you can have that trigger things.
Okay.
So imagine you have a weird like spacey delay effect, like your voice goes, hello, 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 that kind of thing. You can have the knob hooked up to the amount of that you want. So you can turn it all the way off. You can maybe press a note to make a bass sound, and then you turn the knob up and it does that weird echoey sound on the bass. So these MIDI things can not just control which sound, but it's all the options. You know, do you want it to be loud or soft? Do you want it to be echoey or not? Do you want it to start a loop and stop a loop? So MIDI is this big concept of you can kind of just trigger anything.
Wow.
And in a way, that's a little too broad and too confusing because you feel like I just want to play a sound, and it takes a lot of gear to even just play one sound.
Right.
But once you do, then you have like all these sounds that you're just
right. So it really deconstructs it, you know, as far as allowing you to be the controller of all the different parts of the stuff that you're making.
Exactly. And you can, like you say, you can be all the parts. You know, usually you'd play maybe the guitar and then you get somebody else to play the other parts. Well, now you can make whole symphonies because you just play each instrument separately, and you just choose from their list of instruments. And I want a whole string section on just this one note. Right.
Your music command line.
Yeah. Shit, the music command line. I like it.
Boom.
All right, so I mentioned GarageBand. GarageBand is kind of a good way to get into it because it already has a lot of the sounds. It's not too complicated.
Right.
There are plenty of other ones that go a little further. They call them DAWs, Digital Audio Workstations.
Okay.
I've talked about that a little bit in the past.
DAW.
The old DAW. So a couple ones I'd throw out there. One of them is Audio Tool. I think we talked about that as a music side of the week because it's a website that is a whole audio workstation where you can have different tracks for all the different instruments and be doing all this MIDI stuff. Usually that you'd have to have a pretty beefy computer and you'd have to download a big program or buy a big program. Yeah. Now it's just all on the web, which is cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Another one is Audacity. That's a free one.
Yep.
Point is, once you have your MIDI, they call it a MIDI controller, by the way. So like this keyboard that you might have, that's a MIDI controller, but there's other MIDI controllers. Yeah. You can even make your phone into a MIDI controller. So you install an app, and it just gives you virtual buttons, and that's the same idea. You just push it, and it triggers whatever you want.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the kind of the MIDI basics. And once you get that, then you can understand a lot of these other things. So another example of some great MIDI, use of MIDI is drum pants. So this is drum pants 2.0. They had a Kickstarter for drum pants 1.0. And what drum pants are is what obviously everybody would want, which is you can put these little triggers throughout your pants and you can play drums through the little triggers. No. So check it out. So this guy. Oh, yeah. He's got the one in the foot. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Put him anywhere. Start playing the drum pants. You got the app that controls which sounds.
This is amazing. What?
I like how they show a lot of not drum pants.
Yeah.
So what's happening here is the same exact thing. These little triggers that you put in your pants are MIDI triggers.
Yep.
So it's sending that MIDI signal, and you can make any sound come out of them. But I think this is awesome. So they're not quite at their goal for Drum Pants 2.0. So if you're into this, they need another couple tens of thousands of dollars. But you can get one for what? How much? Like $159?
That's awesome.
So Drum Pants, I definitely want one. So yeah. All right. So next. Ableton Push. Okay, so Ableton Push is a MIDI controller. Have you seen this one? It's got fancy lights and things.
No.
All right.
Is it like a hat? Or like a shirt?
Yeah, everything should be built into your clothes now. It's true.
Fanny pack would be great.
Oh yeah, drum fanny pack. So what it is this like button thing.
Okay.
Right. So this is the website from Ableton that shows you how you can use it. What I think is really cool is the lights. So not only are they fun to look at, but they actually are doing different. Oh, it does so much stuff. It's hard to even describe.
Wow.
But it can loop things. When you press it, it can play it, or it can trigger an effect. It's all the same idea. This is a MIDI controller, but it can do so many things, and the lights are so cool. I got to show you the other guy's project with it, because this guy, he puts out YouTube videos all the time of just him using that MIDI controller, this Ableton Push, to recreate covers of songs.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing. Like, he didn't originally make every sound. That was like Skrillex in this case. But he arranged it all in just a way so he can be playing it. It's not just like he presses play and it just does it all. It's that he's actively playing it.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Finger jamming. So he's got each one triggering just the right sound. But watch, once he gets later in the song, there's so many things that are going to start happening. So he's got like the upper right ones that are triggered to the little voice thing. And if you were to play it in a different order, trigger it in a different order. So what's cool about this is that it's a little more live. You can actually be improvising or doing something different.
Right. And this is where like a lot of people say DJs, they don't do anything.
Right. But now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. See, this is where it gets into it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we got to get one of these.
Oh, smokes.
So yeah, this guy's name was Nev, or So Nevable is his YouTube account, and that's what he does. He does these covers. He does a bunch of them. So yeah, MIDI. I mean, awesome. MIDI is just super cool, useful for everything.
Very cool. Yeah, so you can really make anything.
Anything.
Controller.
Yeah, it's kind of like now too big.
Okay.
Like I feel like when I first got this MIDI thing, it was like, well, what do I even do? There's just too much. Even finding sounds is kind of hard. So I have a link in the show notes to a place where you can like find sounds. So if you have GarageBand or something like that, they come with a bunch of built-in ones. But it's nice to have other people who have made them, or or you can make them your own.
You can make your own sound.
That's true. So let me mention one way to do that. So there's a thing called a synthesizer. And a synthesizer sounds like it's just like a keyboard. It's actually a bigger concept than that. What a synthesizer is it's making sounds from scratch.
Right.
So usually what you'd think about a sound is it's probably already pre-recorded. Like you'd think if I want a bass sound, you would record a bass playing every note.
Right.
And then when I press this note, it plays that sample, and I press this note, whatever. Sometimes it does that. But really what you can do is you can make a synthesizer that says start with just a sine wave.
Right.
So a sine wave has this sound. If you just play a sine wave, it's just kind of this blank tone. But you can start messing with it. You can make it a square wave, which makes it sound different. You can make two sine waves on top of each other. You can make it way lower, so it's bass.
Yeah.
And just by making these like mathematical waves, you start making sounds, and you can tweak it. And when you listen to electronic music, that's really what they did.
Wow.
Was they just made those sounds like by tweaking.
But they started with something, right?
No, that's what a synthesizer is kind of amazing. Is and a lot of times they do, and they sample things.
Right. But
a lot of times they don't. Their typical like dubstep bass sound, or like this bass that you might hear, that's just made up from this sine wave.
Very
so
cool.
you can have these little controls. There's lots and lots of ways to do that, and it ends up also being kind of complicated and crazy. So usually what you would do is you would install these synthesizers into your DAW, your digital audio workstation, and instead of starting from scratch, start from someone else's preset.
Right.
So you can load up their preset that says, this is what sine waves, whatever, make this cool bass sound, and then you can kind of tweak it.
Right.
So that's a good way, because starting from scratch is kind of tough. But these things are called VST plugins these days. So if you ever want to like Google how to do this, these VST plugins are what plug into your program to actually be synthesizers, or they actually do a lot more than that. So anyway, yeah, the idea is not only can you trigger sounds, you can make up from scratch sounds and tweak them just how you want.
There you go. So you can, that is incredible.
That is incredible. I know, that even blows my mind. Check out.
From nothing.
Something from nothing. Check out some of these links. It is, I just warn you, it is this
They taste the best.
Crazy.
when you make your sounds
when you make them,
they're the tastiest.
Yeah, it's like the grandma's cookies.
Yeah, your home cooking. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Except it's fat dubstep bass. But still, okay. Yeah, so go ahead, check it out. Get a little MIDI keyboard. MIDI keyboards can even be kind of expensive. Mm-hmm. So if you just want to start with like your iPad or your phone, that can be a MIDI trigger. Just try MIDI for a second and see if you get lost.
Make your own music.
Make your own music.
That's the big thing, right?
Yeah, that's really the point.
Yeah, make your own music. Which brings us to Mr. Ellsberg's website of the week.
All right, and this website is actually an article that a friend has recently sent me. That is an interview with one of our leading intellectuals. Noam Chomsky.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and he's talking about a really interesting thing, which is why in the U.S., people talk about sports more than they talk about world affairs.
Ah, yes.
And so why do Americans know so much more about sports and so little about world affairs? And it's really interesting because basically what he argues is that sports is something that it's okay to have a differing opinion about. And so you can be very educated about sports, and his thing is that you can be very educated about sports, and you can have an opinion that's totally different from somebody else's, and very based in fact. Mm-hmm. You can know exactly what the coach did over the Sunday or whatever, and you can be able to argue whether it's a good or a bad thing from a very intellectual perspective. And what he's saying is that every society has these topics which are very important for them to delve into intellectually. Mm-hmm. And it's a human condition, and it's for nothing more than just being very intelligent about something.
Okay.
And what he's saying is like, it doesn't matter if you're a gas attendant or if you're a CEO of a major company, but it's important for everyone in their own eyes to really get excited about some kind of subject and to really nerd out about it, if you will.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, and I will.
Yeah.
So my question is, he's saying not only do you know so much about sports, but you know little about world affairs. Yeah. What is it about our culture and world affairs that we don't think we can take a stance or know the facts or have a good conversation? I mean, why is that so poor in our scenario?
In his thing, he doesn't know exactly why. But I think it's a big thing is that people don't get offended as to their own personal beliefs when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
So your own ability to analyze kind of yourself and to take a look deeply at who you are doesn't really come into play when you're talking about sports. You can detach yourself about it, which he said is really interesting because really what's happening on the world affairs doesn't directly affect you in any real major way a lot of the time, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter like what some president in Zimbabwe, is doing in a trade agreement with, Europe, right?
Right.
But neither does what Chip Kelly is doing with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. Yeah. But yet people are really excited about what's going on with, their sports team.
Yeah.
So that's what he's kind of saying is like for him, he's very into learning about politics, and so he just learns all about it. And he's saying what his ability to learn about those things doesn't really have any. He's not any better at it than your average Joe Schmo.
Interesting.
Because he likes talking about politics. Does he have a degree in politics? No, he doesn't, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And he's one of our leading intellectuals about it, right?
Yeah.
And so he's saying the same thing about sports. Is a lot of those guys who are the talking heads about sports don't have any degree in sports science.
Right.
They don't know any more about it than you or I. And his proof is that, like, when people call into these talk shows, and they could be a gas attendant, they could be, a barista. It doesn't matter what position they're in. All of a sudden, they're able to argue with these guys that get paid lots and lots of money for it.
Yeah. That's cool. In a way, that's really cool because you don't have to have gone to a ton of school or work in a career. You can still say meaningful stuff with just being kind of I don't know if you call it a casual fan or a hardcore fan or not even that big of a fan. Yeah. But with world politics, I feel like as soon as I were to start saying something, I'm probably wrong. I probably don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have my degree. I guess I wonder if maybe we should take it in the same way where we should talk about the world politics in that way, even if we don't know, because we have something to say,
right?
Or not. I don't know.
Well, so that's his whole thing, is that he's not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing that people are into sports, or a bad thing that people aren't into world politics. But he's just giving an explanation for why, people get so excited about sports. Yeah. And because you got to have something, and as people, for it doesn't matter what group. And what he said is that the equivalent in, say, in a civilization that doesn't have sports or something like that, doesn't have professional sports to talk about, is kinship, which is talking about family relations. Oh, okay. So your ability to know your great-great-great-great-grandpa or something like that, or somebody else's great-great-great uncle or something like that. That's where the intelligence is put into.
Okay. Right? And maybe you knew about the family rivalries, kind of like sports. Like, oh, my other grandpa was rivals with this guy, and they had their feuds, and maybe you know some facts or strategies about that.
Right. And that's why those, like, Hatfield McCoy kind of like, disturbances and stuff are so ingrained in some places. And you can look at in places where sports aren't such a big thing, the rivalries within the groups are extremely important. Places like Ireland, or places like South Africa, Israel, Palestine.
Right, exactly. You kind of have, because you don't maybe have sports teams, you have your outlet for that, but interesting. All right, that's cool. Good website of the week.
So boom, get in there and read about it. See what. It's an interesting take on sports.
Excellent. All right.
Yep.
Cool. Brings us to security. All right. So this week's security is talking about the keyless entry things for your car.
All right.
And that they are totally vulnerable.
I heard.
So not only the keyless entry, like on my keychain, I had the thing where you press the button to unlock the doors. Yep. Not just that, but the ones, especially the ones that you use to drive the car. Yeah. So the newer ones where you just have to have it in your pocket, and as soon as you walk up to the door, you don't even have to press the button.
So I've got one of these. Yeah. Okay. So this is important to me.
This is very important to you, and somebody can totally do this to your car.
Okay. Well, tell me how they're going to do it.
Well, so what they do is that they have an amplifier for that signal, so they're able to amplify the signal from you. To them, and then they can get in your car. So even if you're, fairly close by, they can activate it all and get in your car and go away.
Crazy.
So what you'll see is videos of people just like walking up to the car. They have like this little device. I think they said you can get it for like $17.
Yeah.
And it just amplifies a signal, which means that your key thing now is telling the car, oh, you're close by when you're not. Yeah. And then you can get in the car. And then with the new ones, you press the button and it just starts. And you just drive away.
Crazy.
So, and the other thing is that I don't think this has been fixed. So I don't think there's anything you can do other than what people do now and can do is get a little cage for your little key thing that will block all signals.
Yeah.
So if you get one of those cages that makes sure your key is never actually getting the signals out, and then you could either take it out of that cage when you're ready, or you just have to not have that kind of car.
Wow, that's crazy.
Super crazy.
No kidding.
If your car just disappears one day.
Which mine did last week.
Okay, was this? You just talking about this. Yeah. So that very well may have been the thing that did it.
Yeah, that's exactly probably what happened. I mean, they're in the car and they're out in a minute and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, they have video of it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's right. And no broken windows or anything.
No broken windows.
So this must have been it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so some personal experience here on Tech Town with the security segment. So
oh, man. Well, guys, I wish I would have listened to this last week.
I know. We got to go back. Next week on Tech Town, we'll do time travel. So.
All right, guys. So get out there, make your own music. Block your keys and read up on some world politics. And we will see you here next week at Tech Town.
Peace.